Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a huge fan of the Mac. I've been using a Mac for as long as I can remember, even as a kid in the family. Just growing up, we always had some type of Apple computer to play on, and I use a Mac for work every single day, but at the same time, I love the idea of simplifying my ecosystem further to the point that one device could do the task of multiple. So I came up with 3 main things that the iPad would need to do in order for it to replace my Mac. Let's begin. Yeah, I'm sure there's a huge laundry list of things you guys need for all of your different use cases out there, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized everything for me and my workflow at least could be summarized by about 3 main things, most of which involve software, which I think also gives the iPad line quite a bit of hope of it becoming quite the computer replacement for more and more people. It already has replaced laptops and Macs for many demographics, but not all. And personally for me, the main thing that would make a huge difference, of course, is Final Cut. So LumaFusion is pretty great on the iPad, but there's still certain filters and there's still a few things Final Cut has over LumaFusion that I would love to see brought to the iPad, and of course take advantage of it with that keyboard and trackpad support we now have. There's been rumors of Final Cut brewing on the iPad for a long time, but it's never really formulated into anything, and some people are speculating it's because of the RAM or the silicon in the iPad just not being powerful enough. But now that we have Apple optimizing pro applications for the Mac that is now running Apple Silicon, it gives me hope that maybe with the A14X chip and the mini LED iPad Pro launching next month, we could actually get an iPad refresh that's capable of running those Pro class applications. So that's something I could actually see happening in time. My main concern is just if they're going to turn Final Cut into a subscription, which I don't want, or if they're going to make me pay full price for Final Cut all over again, which would also kind of suck. So I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there, but having high-class video editing software on a device that's so thin, so portable, and I can also design my video thumbnails on there because that's what I use my iPad for currently, that would save a whole lot of time to not have to dart between 2 different devices. The other one, which is probably going to be a lot more niche and something that most of you don't really care about but makes a big difference to me, is external webcam support, which I do a lot of live streaming over on Twitch and sometimes on YouTube as well, and when I do those live broadcasts, I connect an external camera to my computer so that I can have a higher definition image, a better frame rate, and have manual focus and all that kind of thing. It's very, very helpful if you want to do professional grade streaming, and I'm sure that there are apps on the iPad that let you live stream just from the standard built-in camera, but we all know that built-in camera isn't going to be as good as a dedicated one, and currently there's lots of hardware out there that lets you convert video signals into a webcam registered signal into your Mac or PC, and they don't require high-speed data. Like, I saw the Bloomberg report talking about the iPad gaining a Thunderbolt port and how that will allow for faster data speeds and everything, and that's fantastic, but you can still carry a 1080 60 FPS image over a typical USB-A port. As long as it's 3.0 and you've got a camera with an HDMI out, then it's totally possible for the iPad to support this. It's just one of those weird little software things that the Mac has clearly had around for a while, but the iPad is a bit newer, and likely because there's not that many people asking for this feature, Apple hasn't put much of a priority on it. But legit, if they wanted to, they could add this update to the iPad tomorrow and just be like, there, external webcam support. That way when you're FaceTiming, or even if you wanted to record videos for your YouTube channel or for your podcast or whatever, and record them directly to the iPad instead of recording them to a CFast card or an SD card and then having to import them into the iPad, allowing external webcam support would save you that additional step of having to import footage. Instead, you could just record it directly on the device, which I've done with my iMac a few times when I'm making a video in a hurry, or whenever we record the Tailosive Tech podcast. It saves time to not have to record all of that to a separate drive. Instead, just record it directly on the machine you're going to be editing it on. That's something I could see Apple not doing for a long time because I know how few people are asking for it, but I thought I would express the sentiment out to you guys and just think about, like, hey, you know, if you're annoyed with having to plug in adapters and that kind of thing, this external webcam support keyboard could allow you to bypass that whole process. The third thing, which I think there's actually a lot more demand for, which is why I saved it for last, is external monitor support. Because let's say I get the first two things I asked for, right? They allow me to have an external webcam. They bring Final Cut to the iPad. I'm like, cool, I can edit my videos on the go, and now I can finally plug in my Blackmagic camera to my iPad and live stream directly from this. Even then, though, I would still be working my entire job off of a 13-inch 2-in-1, which, don't get me wrong, is going to be very portable and pretty impressive that you can do so much with a device that's so small and so versatile, because I'll still be able to take it off the Magic Keyboard case and use an Apple Pencil to design my video thumbnails and everything, and I can still have 120 Hz and Face ID. This would be one of the coolest 2-in-1s ever if we just got the first two things, but at the end of the day, there are a lot of circumstances where I'm editing tons of videos and I want to be able to see them in real time on a much larger display than 13 inches. This is all too fresh to me because when I reviewed the M1 MacBook Air, I was using that for everything. I just temporarily retired my iMac Pro and didn't even turn it on, but I was doing everything off of just this one 13-inch little notebook, and it reminded me why I love desktops so much still. It's because having that spread out keyboard and mouse and large monitor support, I'm able to edit a lot faster, and if iPadOS was updated so that when you plug in an external monitor, it doesn't just mirror the iPad display, but it actually could reformat the iPadOS aspect ratio to be 16:9 or 2:1. You don't have to support every monitor out there because it's an iPad, but as long as there was just some type of revamped external monitor support that allowed me to plug the iPad in via USB-C or Thunderbolt, if that ends up being a thing, and then I can actually edit on a full-size 32-inch display when I want to use a desktop, but then when I'm done using a desktop and I want to go hang out on the couch, or if I want to edit videos while I'm going on vacation or something, I can just disconnect it, take the iPad with me, and now my workflow would be immensely more simplified because I wouldn't have to have a Mac and an iPad. Instead, I could just have an iPad powering everything, and some people out there are probably envisioning, like, if it needed to replace a Mac for me, I would need it to have an additional Type-C port, but honestly, simply because the Magic Keyboard case has a USB Type-C on the left side and the full-size USB-C port is on the right side, I could get by with that. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to complain if Apple decided to bring 4 USB-C ports to the iPad. That would be awesome, and I would take advantage of those greatly, but the main reason I didn't like the 2 USB-C ports on the MacBook Air wasn't necessarily the number of ports, it was the layout. It was the fact that they were both on the same side, which meant all of my adapters and all of my chargers and everything that I wanted to plug into the MacBook Air had to be stretched over to the left side, which I found kind of annoying, and there were so many times it would have been much easier if I could just plug in from the right or the left. With the iPad, I just default to, okay, the left is always going to be power, so we can just accept that, and then the right port can always be for my accessories, whether I'm importing footage or plugging in an external webcam or plugging in an external monitor. I'm sure I would still probably have to use a dongle or adapter of some kind, because just simply wanting to use an external webcam and an external monitor at the same time, probably going to need to use a little adapter that has HDMI and USB, but I'm sure you can do all of that over Type-C, and right now the iPad hardware might be so limited that it's not really capable of maintaining several displays simultaneously and supporting input from an external webcam, but that's why I'm hoping the A14X chip, or in my opinion, if you want to simplify things a tad further, just put the M1 chip in the iPad. If it's still going to be a 5nm design and the performance is going to be equal to that of the M1 Max, why have 2 different branded CPUs that are basically the same? Then yeah, simplify everything and just say, okay, here's how you get the M1 chip performance on an iPadOS device that does allow you to embrace a touchscreen, does allow you to have cellular, does allow you to use an Apple Pencil, does allow you to utilize Face ID, which are still all things that the Mac does not have right now. I know a lot of you are probably thinking, so you basically want the iPad to turn into a Mac, and to a certain extent, yes. I'm not saying turn off the touchscreen and make the keyboard built in or anything, but I'm simply saying that there are 3 things preventing the iPad from replacing my Mac, and all of them are software related. I'm sure a few hardware additions, giving it some more RAM, giving it a faster chip, would absolutely help, but I'm telling you right now, I'd be willing to ditch the Mac entirely if they addressed these things in the next version of iPadOS. And for those who don't remember, I used to run my entire YouTube channel off of the original iPad Pro long before I had an external keyboard or we had trackpad support on the iPad. I was just editing everything with iMovie and the Apple Pencil, and some of my first videos that took off and got this channel off the ground were completely edited on the iPad. So I'm kind of in favor and a little bit bias to see the iPad become more and more capable, and in the future just make this one device that can do everything productivity related, instead of how I am right now, where I use the Mac because it has certain software things that the iPad can't do, but then for everything else I use the iPad because it's clearly more fun. The Face ID sensors are better, the display is better at 120 hertz, the design is more futuristic and modern. Just missing those three things and you could get me over. So hopefully someone from Apple sees this and decides to implement all the changes, but I'm sure your answers are going to be totally different from mine, and that's okay. We all use machines for different reasons, but let me know what you guys would need the iPad to do in order for it to replace your Mac. This is your Apple Sleep here. I'll see you guys in the next one.